The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus Radio, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices, emanating live from the DMV. Local, national, and international listeners, get ready. Black Focus Radio is on the air. Like, share, and subscribe on YouTube and your favorite social media app. Now, here's your host, David W. Coleman.
Habari Gani. And that means it's time for another edition of Black Focus Radio, the only show that unabashedly addresses Black issues, creating Black solutions, and amplifying Black voices. Be sure to support our sponsor, joynetradio.com, where we keep you inspired and informed. And by the way, they broadcast Black Focus Radio daily, 12 to 2 p.m. And, of course, ribrub.com. That's RIBBRUBB.com, where we bake it, grill it, smoke it. Oh, yeah. And catch Black Focus Radio on Facebook, Instagram, and now we're back on Twitter. And let's not forget about YouTube as well. While you're out there, like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend, tell a friend, and tell a friend. Want to remind you also that I want you to join my one-man campaign to get rid of the N-word. It is the most despicable word ever created. Our rise begins with how we address one another. And using a derogatory slur against our own people is a negative, self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, I like to say, just don't say it. I also want to remind you that in just a few days, Blue Chip Down, my latest novel, will be out. It is on Amazon. You can also order it direct. And if you order it direct from me, I've got a 2-for-1 special for you. Not only will I give you the autographed copy of Blue Chip Down, I'll also give you an audio book. So that means that if you like to read and you got another family member who likes to listen to audiobooks, you can do one or the other. That's what's going on. Now, just remember, that's for a limited time. So go ahead and get that order in today. I'll be giving you information, and go out to my Facebook page to find out how you can order that book. Okay? Now, a lot of stuff to talk about today. Lots and lots and lots of stuff. Okay? Just want to remind you that there's so much going on. There is a possibility that we may not get to everything, and that seems to have been the case over the last few days, to be totally honest, because there is a lot of things going on these days. All right? So we want to make sure that we're going to do Black Facts. That'll be coming up here in just a moment. And it plays into something that happened last week. We're certainly going to go talk about the National Association of Black Journalists and the Coon A. Smith, as I like to call him. We'll get into that. Of course, there have been a few elections that are going on. We'll probably get into some of this as well. But the Democratic Party is changing right before our eyes. And believe it or not, that's a good thing, in my opinion. Okay? Hakeem Jeffries juxtaposed to Angie Nixon. We'll talk about all of that. And Abdul Syed, because they don't know what to do. We also got to talk about Gary, Indiana. It certainly reminds me of Katrina. The local media is not talking about this. And this is one of the reasons why I tell you that it is important for us to have Black media. Because there are a lot of things that have been going on in the Black community that were negative that they're not talking about. Now, I mean, not being perpetrated by us, but against us. And the media, certainly under these changes under the Trump administration, they're not talking about it at all. Austin Metcalf, you remember that name. That name is synonymous with Carmelo Anthony. Of course, he had a new legal team and they asked for a new trial, but it wasn't granted. But there are some curious things that happened in the first trial that we need to address. And just to show you how we have two systems of justice. Okay? And to highlight that, have you heard about the Penn State drug cartel? Poor little boys. They were just misled. I'm sure they were. Yeah. And we're certainly going to pay some tribute to Michael Williams from the great movie, The Five Heartbeats. Just a great, great movie. And he passed away last week. So we'll get into all of that here in just a moment. But right now, let's do Black Facts.
Wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up.
Dynamic Black Facts. Our culture, our history, our people.
Now, as you all know, I am a huge Black history buff, and not because it's Black history, but because it's me. It's about our culture. It's about our history. And I think it is important for us to understand our history if we want to be able to go further. And I talk about it a lot where every Black child, if they're not teaching your children Black history in school, then you should be doing it at home. And you might say, well, I don't know much about Black history. That's not an excuse. All you got to do is get on the internet, and certainly now with AI, just type in Black history. Give me some information about Black history, and you'll get all kinds of great, great information. But this particular person that I'm going to talk about today, I first became aware of him decades ago. And it was through a movie. And that movie was Tora, Tora, Tora. Now, some of you young kids may not know about that movie. And I think they did remake that movie with Ben Affleck and some other guys. But I remember going to see this movie, and if you're from Little Rock from back in the day, at the Cinema 150, you know, that big globe shaped theater that was out on University and Asher. And I remember I was actually there watching the Poseidon Adventure, and they came up with the previews of Tora, Tora, Tora. So I actually got to go see that movie. And in that movie, there was this one Black guy that stood up and was a bad mother shut your mouth. His name was Doris Miller. Now, Doris Miller was born October 12th, 1919. He lived through November 24th, 1943. He was a U.S. Navy sailor who was the first Black recipient of the Navy Cross and a nominee for the Medal of Honor. As a mess attendant, second class, aboard the battleship USS Virginia, Doris Miller carried wounded sailors to safety during the attack on Pearl Harbor. You know, December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor. Doris Miller, by the way, if you don't know what a mess attendant second class is, he was a cook. You see, they wouldn't let him fight, but they let him cook. He then operated an anti-aircraft gun, and despite no prior training in gunnery, officially shot down, according to the Navy, one plane, but witnesses say Miller claimed to have shot down 4 to 6 Japanese Zeros. Okay? He was out there threading lead. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Miller received the Navy Cross from Admiral Chester Nimitz on May 27, 1942, but many sailors and naval officers believed that Miller's heroism deserved a Medal of Honor. Miller was nominated for a Medal of Honor by a congressman from Michigan and a senator from New York, and the Black press enthusiastically campaigned for Miller to receive this decoration. Secretary of the Navy Frank Knox, who opposed Black sailors serving in the United States in any combat role, recommended against Miller receiving the Medal of Honor. No Black sailor, soldier, or Marine was awarded the Medal of Honor between 1941 and 1945. And in 1996, Vernon J. Baker was the only Black veteran of World War II to be awarded the decoration while still alive. By the way, you remember the Fighting Tigers? Them bad boys. That tank battalion, all black, from New York. Don't forget about the Red Tails, who even white pilots didn't even want to fly if they weren't being accompanied by the Red Tails. Okay? But they didn't want to give us any love. They didn't want to give us any support. They didn't want to give us any recognition for what we did for this country. I told y'all over and over again, black people have been the most loyal people in American history, yet we've been crapped on more than any other people. Racism is a disease. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. In June of 1943, Miller was promoted to Cook Petty Officer, 3rd class. In November 1943, Miller was killed in action when his ship, the escort carrier Liscum Bay, was torpedoed by a Japanese submarine during the Battle of Macon in the Gilbert Islands, with the loss of 702 officers and sailors, the deadliest sinking of a carrier in U.S. naval history. Frigate USS Miller and aircraft carrier USS Doris Miller are named in his honor. Miller was born in Waco, Texas on October 12, 1919, to Connery and Henrietta Miller. He was named Doris after the midwife who assisted his mother was convinced before his birth that the baby would be a girl. He was the 3rd of 4 sons and helped around the house, cooked meals, and did laundry, as well as worked on the family farm. He was a fullback on the college football team at Waco's Alexander James Moore High School. He began attending the 8th grade on January 25, 1937 at 17. He repeated the grade the following year because of poor performance, so he decided to drop out of school. He filled his time squirrel hunting with a .22 rifle and completed a correspondence course in taxidermy. He applied to join the Civil Service Corps, but was not accepted. At that time, he was 6 feet 3 inches tall and weighed 200 pounds. Miller worked on his father's farm until shortly before his 20th birthday. Miller's nickname, Dory, may have originated from a typographical error. He was nominated for recognition for his actions on December 7, 1941, and the Pittsburgh Courier released a story on March 14, 1942, which gave his name as Dory Miller. Since then, some writers have suggested that is the nickname that shipmates and friends gave him. Miller enlisted in the Navy as a mess attendant, 3rd class, at the Naval Recruiting Station in Dallas, Texas, for 6 years on September 16, 1939. Mess attendant was one of the few ratings open at the time for black sailors. He was transferred to the Naval Training Center, Naval Operating Base, Norfolk, Virginia, arriving on September 19th. After training school, he was assigned to the ammunition ship Pyro, AE-1, and then transferred on January 2nd, 1940, to the Colorado-class battleship West Virginia. It was on the West Virginia where he started competition boxing, becoming the ship's heavyweight champion. In July, he was on temporary duty aboard the Nevada, a secondary battle gunnery school. He returned to the West Virginia on August 3rd. He advanced in rating to mess attendant 2nd class on February 16, 1941. Miller woke up at 6 a.m. on December 7, 1941, aboard the West Virginia. He served breakfast, mess, and was collecting laundry at 7:57 a.m. when planes from the Japanese aircraft carrier Akagi fired the first of 7 torpedoes that hit the West Virginia. The battle station's alarm went off. Miller headed for his battle station, an anti-aircraft battery magazine amidship, only to discover that a torpedo had destroyed it. He then went to Times Square on deck, a central spot aboard the ship where a fore to aft and port to starboard passageways crossed. Reporting himself available for other duty, and was assigned to carry wounded soldiers to places of greater safety. Lieutenant Commander Dior C. Johnson, the ship's communication officer, spotted Miller and saw his physical prowess, so he ordered him to accompany him to the conning tower on the flag bridge to assist in moving the ship's captain, Mervyn Binion, who had a gaping wound in his abdomen, where he had apparently been hit by shrapnel after the first Japanese attack. Miller and another sailor lifted the skipper, but were unable to move him from the bridge, so they carried him on a cot from his exposed position on the damaged bridge to a sheltered spot on the deck behind the conning tower, where he remained during the second Japanese attack. Captain Binion refused to leave his post, questioned his officers and men about the condition of the ship, and gave orders and instructions to crew members to defend the ship and fight. Unable to go to the deck below because of smoke and flames, he carried up a ladder to the navigation bridge, where he died. He was carried up a ladder to the navigation bridge, where he died from blood loss despite the aid from the pharmacist's mate. He was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. Lieutenant Frederick H. White, who ordered Miller to help him and Ensign Victor Delano load the unmanned number 1 and number 2 Browning 50 caliber anti-aircraft machine guns aft of the conning tower. Miller was not familiar with the weapon, but White and Delano instructed him how to operate it. Delano expected Miller to feed ammunition to one machine gun, but his attention was diverted, and when he looked again, Miller was firing one of the machine guns. White then loaded ammunition into both machine guns and assigned Miller the starboard machine gun. Miller fired the machine gun until it ran out of ammunition, whereupon he was ordered by Lieutenant Claude Ricketts to help carry the captain up the navigation bridge out of the thick oily smoke generated by many fires on and around the ship. Miller was officially credited for downing at least 2 hostile planes. "I think I got one of those Jap planes. They were diving pretty close to us," he said later. Japanese aircraft eventually dropped 2 armor-piercing bombs through the deck of the battleship and launched 5 18-inch 460-millimeter torpedoes into her port side. When the attack finally lessened, Miller helped move injured sailors through oil water to the quarterback, where, unquestionably saving the lives of a number of people who might otherwise have been lost. The ship was heavily damaged by bombs, torpedoes, and resulting explosions and fires, but the crew prevented her from capsizing by counter-flooding compartments. Instead, the Virginia sank to the harbor bottom in the shallow water as her surviving crew abandoned ship, including Miller. The ship was later raised and restored and continued service in the war. On West Virginia, 132 men were killed and 52 were wounded by the Japanese attack. On December 13th, Miller reported to the heavy cruiser Indianapolis. On January 1st, 1942, the Navy released a list of accommodations for actions on December 7th. Among them was a single accommodation for an unarmed black man. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People had asked President Franklin Delano Roosevelt to award the Distinguished Service Cross to the unknown black sailor. The Navy Board of Awards received a recommendation that the sailor be considered for recognition. On March 12th, an Associated Press story named Miller as that sailor, citing the African-American newspaper Pittsburgh Courier. Additional news reports credited Lawrence D. Reddick with learning the name through correspondence with the Navy Department, with these news reports becoming influential aspects in giving the Double V campaign greater legitimacy. In the following days, Senator James M. Meade introduced a Senate bill to award Miller the Medal of Honor, and Representative John Dingell Sr. introduced a matching House bill. Miller was recognized as one of the U.S. Navy's heroes of World War II. He was commanded in a letter signed by the Secretary of Navy, Frank Cox, on April 1st, and the next day CBS Radio broadcast an episode of the series They Live Forever, which dramatized Miller's actions. Black organizations began to campaign to honor Miller with an additional recognition. On April 4th, the Pittsburgh Courier urged readers to write to members of Congress, Naval Affairs Committee, in support of awarding the Medal of Honor to Miller. The All Southern Negro Youth Conference launched a signature campaign on April 17th through 19th. On May 10th, the National Negro Congress denounced Knox's recommendation against awarding Miller the Medal of Honor. On May 11th, President Roosevelt approved the Navy Cross for Miller. On May 27th, Miller was personally recognized by Admiral Chester Nimitz, Commander-in-Chief Pacific Fleet, aboard the aircraft carrier Enterprise at anchor in Pearl Harbor. Nimitz presented Miller with the Navy Cross. At the time, the third largest or the third highest Navy award for gallantry during combat. After the Medal of Honor and the Navy Distinguished Service Medal on August 7, 1942, Congress revised the order of precedence, placing the Navy Cross above the Distinguished Service Medal in precedence. Nimitz said of Miller's commendation, "This marks the first time in this conflict that such high tribute has been made in the Pacific Fleet to a member of his race, and I am sure that the future will see others similarly awarded and honored for brave acts." By the way, that's our Black Fact for today.
Wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up.
Keep listening to Black Focus Radio for more dynamic Black facts, our culture, our history, our people on joynetradio.com.
Wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up.
I hope you enjoyed that Black Fact, and there's a particular reason why I decided to do that Black Fact. As I told you, I first became aware of Doris Miller, and when I first saw the movie, and it had to be back in 1974, somewhere in there, when I saw Tora. That movie has been remade, and of course, there's implications of, or at least another guy who played Doris Miller. On that movie, by the way, Doris Miller was killed. He was killed by Japanese Zeros, but in fact, he did not die on December 7th, 1941, but died later. And just a wonderful, wonderful story about a black man who was treated poorly, who wasn't even allowed to train as a gunnery agent, ended up downing 4 to 6 Zeros. And even in that story, they didn't even want to give him credit for downing 4 to 6 Zeros. They said, oh, he only shot down 1. But not only that, he carried fellow soldiers or fellow sailors to safety. By the way, fellow white sailors. See, Doris Miller wasn't concerned about skin color. Doris Miller was concerned about saving American lives. And that's what he did. And now, today, a story was released just this past week where Donald Trump wants that aircraft carrier that is named after Doris Miller. He wants the name stripped from that aircraft carrier. And he wants his name on it. By the way, Donald Trump, as you know, he didn't march one cadence because he had bone spurs. He got 5 draft deferments. But now he wants to take the name of Doris Miller off, a man who got a Navy Cross. Hello? Distinguished Service Medal. Hello? The Medal of Honor. A man who gave his life, who ultimately ended up dying in service for America. He wants to take the name off of that ship and put his name on it. And by the way, Pete Hegseth, or I should say Keg's Breath, he's allowing this to happen. What an abomination. By the way, Pete Keg's Breath couldn't hold a candle to what Dory Miller did. Wow. It's just amazing to me. And there are black people running around out there today saying Donald Trump isn't a racist. Wow. Anyway, let's take our first break. You're listening to Black Focus Radio, our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
He's 6'5", 225 pounds, runs a 4.240, and he's the #1 high school football recruit in America.
Amon-Ra Fuqua, National Signing Day is here. Where are you going?
I'm not signing.
Every major college wanted him, but Amon-Ra Fuqua wanted something bigger.
You make billions from our talent. It's time the athletes who built this game get a fair share and a voice. And hear me clearly, if we can't vote in your state, we won't play in your state.
Break it, whatever it takes.
Amon, help me.
LaMarcus.
His boycott threatens $1 billion empire, and powerful people are determined to stop him. His best friend is dead. His twin sister has been kidnapped, and the people behind it may be closer to power than anyone imagined. From the football field to the streets of Little Rock to the halls of power, one young man is about to discover what happens when you challenge the system.
For LaMarcus, the boycott continues.
Blue Chip Down, a gripping political sports thriller by Dante Cinque. One signature could have made him rich. One decision could change America. Blue Chip Down, available now on Amazon.
Every day, potential customers are deciding who to trust. The question is, will they choose you? At Chanbear Media Consultants, we help businesses, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and authors build brands that stand out and get results. Need a new logo, podcast or website development and evaluation, grant research and writing, book editing with formatting and cover design? Chanbear Media Consultants has got you covered. With over 40 years of media experience, David W. Coleman and the Chanbear team combine creativity with strategy to help your organization communicate with confidence and grow with purpose. Don't settle for ordinary when your brand can be extraordinary. Call Chanbear Media Consultants today at 615-554-0568. That's 615-554-0568. Chanbear Media Consultants, building brands, creating influence, and most importantly, delivering results.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio, our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me. If you'd like to join the show, there's so many things going on, and I told you I've got a lot of stuff on my script today, and we're not going to get to a lot of that stuff. All right, but there are a few things that I want to talk about, and right now, first and foremost, I want to talk about Gary, Indiana. Now, I've told you all before that black media is so important to us. And part of the reason that I love Joynet Radio so much is because of its owner, J.C. Love, or Reverend Clarence Thornton. It is the only black-owned radio station in the state of Arkansas. J.C. Love has been in the radio business just about as long as I have. And when the white people came from him, he decided that he would start his own and make his own. When I first moved back to Little Rock and he heard my show on a community radio station, he immediately picked up the phone and called me and said, "Hey, come to me. Let's talk." The very next day, I was on his show, on his station. And I've supported him 9 years running, and I will continue to do so. Even after the white folks came for him and told him, when I started doing Black Focus Radio, when I started doing that show, the white folks came for him and tried to blackmail him and tell him that, hey, if you take that guy off your show, off your station, we'll spend some money with you. J.C. Love turned his back on them, not on me. So it is important for us to understand the power of black radio. I've seen people, I've lived in Atlanta, I have ties there. I've lived in Nashville, I have ties there. I've lived in Memphis, I have ties there. And a lot of black people in those communities are complaining about the fact that the quote unquote black radio stations seems to be playing ads for white Republican MAGA candidates, not understanding that those stations are not owned by black people. Those stations are owned by white conglomerates and corporations, and they're in it to make money, and they don't care how they bastardizes those stations. I say all that to say that without black media, you heard me, if you heard what I was talking about as it relates to Dory Miller, it was the Pittsburgh Carrier, a black newspaper, who first started advocating for him to get the Navy Cross. It was the Pittsburgh Carrier who went out and found out who this black man was during Pearl Harbor, who saved many of his white sailor friends that no one even knew his name. That was a black newspaper, the Pittsburgh Courier. So black media is important to us because it tells our story. Dr. Rosie Milligan talks about who will tell our story. She talks about that a lot. And we have to be conscious of the fact that no one is going to tell our story for us, by us, but us. That's part of the reason I write. I write my novels. If you read them, you'll find that they are full of black characters. The black leads, black love, black heroism, all of that stuff is because we have to tell our story, because no one else is going to tell it for us. Now, I'm saying all that to say this. For the last 13 days, Gary, Indiana has literally been without power. And when I mean without power, I mean without electricity, without fresh water, without the ability to cook their own food because of a disastrous flood. Now, here's the irony. There are surrounding areas that has their electricity restored. Well, what's the difference? Gary, Indiana, and by the way, I first heard of Gary, Indiana back when I was 9 or 10 years old. And you all, if you're my age, that was probably the first time you heard of Gary, Indiana. I'm going back to Indiana. Indiana, here I come. That was the Jackson 5 because they were from Gary, Indiana. Gary, Indiana today is about 75% black. Now, why is that important? Because those areas that have had their power restored around Gary, Indiana are predominantly white. And when I first heard this story, excuse me, I had shades of Katrina. Y'all know Katrina, right? You know, Katrina devastated the Ninth Ward. The Ninth Ward was the predominantly black area of New Orleans. And it was few and man, I sit here today and I can see those pictures of those people, those black people on those bridges. I can see those images of those black people covered up who had died because the federal government had refused to help the black community in New Orleans. I remember reading and talking about stories on my show where black people were being shot at by white residents because those white residents didn't want black people to come to their communities that were above the water line. You see, I'm having flashbacks about what's going on in Gary, Indiana. The sad part about all of this, the white media is not covering this. You see, what you have to understand is that these are vestiges of what Donald Trump has put into play. He has taken over much of the media. CBS, CNN, ABC. He's pressuring them all. So they're not covering black issues anymore. Again, this is why black media is so important. I hope that those young people out there who are in the media, who are now beginning to understand the power and the importance of black media. In a little bit, we're going to tell you a little bit more about the power and the importance of black media. They're not covering what's going on in Gary, Indiana. They don't care about what's going on in Gary, Indiana. They would rather for the people to die. Remember what was going on in Flint, Michigan? And by the way, we don't talk much about Flint anymore, right? But you know, Flint, Michigan is a predominantly black city as well. You know that many of those people are still not getting quality drinking water? Did y'all know that? We have to be concerned. And every chance you get, you need to make sure that you are supporting black media. And look, there are a lot of podcasts that are popping up all over the country. A lot of black people are doing podcasts. I got a potential invitation just yesterday about being on somebody's podcast. Okay? We want to talk about religion, and we want to talk about empowerment. But nobody wants to talk about the things that are really affecting the black community. Nobody wants to address politics. Nobody wants to address the bigotry and the racism that continues to go on. This is why I do Black Focus Radio, because it is important for us to call out the majority community who continues to practice white supremacy on a regular basis. And we see it every day of our lives. And Gary, Indiana is an indication of that. It is indicative of what this country stands for today. It has always been there. It's always been an underlying sore. But now that sore has erupted into a cancerous tumor that is literally trying to destroy the black community. That story about Doris Miller, is a classic example of what this administration is trying to do to black history. We've talked a lot about him trying to limit what was going on, the black history that was going on at the Smithsonian. We've talked ad infinitum about that. We've talked about the thousands of black workers that has been fired. We've talked about the hundreds of black commandants and captains and military professionals who have been removed. We've talked about their attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion, only to use diversity, equity, and inclusion to hire white people. Lindsey Graham's sister is a classic example of that. Among others, Mark Wayne Mullen, the cow chip farmer, who is now the head of Homeland Security, has no law enforcement background. Was a farmer and flipped cow chips. Did you see the debate with Lindsey Graham's sister when asked about national security and the importance of Taiwan? She couldn't even answer the question. All she could say is, I support the military. It was a crying shame. But had there been black folks, a black person, a black candidate, she would have never been nominated, let alone appointed by this administration. The black press is important. We saw that with the NABJ. We're going to talk about that a little later in the show. How important it is for us to stand up and have our own. Because they're not going to cover it. The white press is notorious. It is historic for writing the story that was not really the story. Go back into history. Look at the Red Summer, when those accounts were made available by the white press. It was always favorable to the white mobs, the white rioters. So what's going on in Gary, Indiana today? Whether you report it or not, people are still suffering. Black people. And we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that the white community surrounding Gary, their power has been restored. They are getting their lives back together. And I thought it was important for me today to bring up Gary. I thought it was important for me today to talk about Gary and what is going on in Gary. Because this is indicative of what the white media has been doing for years. And it's not just the news, it's television. I've told you all about, well, you all know the story of Toussaint L'Ouverture, right? Toussaint L'Ouverture and by the way, I believe, if I remember my history correctly, I believe it was August 22nd, 1791, when Toussaint L'Ouverture overturned the French government in Haiti. Well, you know, Samuel L. Jackson wanted to make a movie about that, right? And he's been trying to make a movie for decades. And you know, Hollywood has turned him down. You know why Hollywood turned him down? Let me just tell you. Hollywood basically told him that they couldn't make that movie because there wasn't a white hero. Hello? You see, Hollywood has contributed to these negative stereotypes of black people for decades. And you won't make a movie about a great revolutionary, the first country in the Western Hemisphere to get rid of slavery on its own accord because there wasn't a white hero? Here's what I ask you black brothers and sisters who are making money. You black brothers and sisters, you athletes, you movie stars. You know, Ryan Clark was fired from ESPN a few weeks ago. Jaylen Brown asked, why don't we have our own black media? That's not a question that we should be asking. That should be a project that we should be embarking on today. Who will tell our story? The prophetic words of Dr. Rosie Milligan. Will you? We'll take another break. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
He's 6'5", 225 pounds, runs a 4.240, and he's the #1 high school football recruit in America.
Amon-Ra Fuqua, National Signing Day is here. Where are you going?
I'm not signing.
Every major college wanted him, but Amon-Ra Fuqua wanted something bigger.
You make billions from our talent. It's time the athletes who built this game get a fair share and a voice. And hear me clearly, if we can't vote in your state, we won't play in your state. Break it, whatever it takes.
Amon, help me.
LaMarcus.
His boycott threatens $1 billion empire, and powerful people are determined to stop him. His best friend is dead. His twin sister has been kidnapped, and the people behind it may be closer to power than anyone imagined. From the football field to the streets of Little Rock to the halls of power, one young man is about to discover what happens when you challenge the system.
For LaMarcus, the boycott continues.
Blue Chip Down, a gripping political sports thriller by Dante Cinque. One signature could have made him rich. One decision could change America. Blue Chip Down, available now on Amazon.
Every day, potential customers are deciding who to trust. The question is, will they choose you? At Chanbear Media Consultants, we help businesses, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and authors build brands that stand out and get results. Need a new logo, podcast or website development and evaluation, grant research and writing, book editing with formatting and cover design? Chanbear Media Consultants has got you covered. With over 40 years of media experience, David W. Coleman and the Chanbear team combine creativity with strategy to help your organization communicate with confidence and grow with purpose. Don't settle for ordinary when your brand can be extraordinary. Call Chanbear Media Consultants today at 615-554-0568. That's 615-554-0568. Chanbear Media Consultants, building brands, creating influence, and most importantly, delivering results.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with us if you'd like to join our show. We got so much to talk about today. If I had a show that was just an hour, I don't know what I would do. I wouldn't be able to squeeze in all this stuff, but fortunately, I am one of the few shows that has a 2-hour show. It gives me a lot of chance to expound on a lot of different things. So that's what we're doing today. As usual, you can hit us up at blackfocusradio at gmail.com if you have a question or comment. By the way, don't forget, Blue Chip Down will be out September 1st. You can get a 2-for-1 deal, an audio book, and a paperback for a limited time and a good price. But you have to get this ordered by September 1st. Okay? So this segment, I'm trying to debate what I want to talk about. Okay? And I guess I want to, let's stay in the same vein with the media, because it's important for us to understand how the media affects us every day. By the way, you've heard about the Penn State cocaine drug cartel, right? Huh? You haven't? Well, last week, 14 people were arrested for trafficking thousands of dollars of cocaine. They were students at the Penn State University. Yeah, Happy Valley. No wonder they call it Happy Valley. Now, there's been a lot of things going on at Happy Valley over the years. It's plagued with scandal. This is just one of the many. But 14 people were arrested and charged with trafficking thousands of dollars in cocaine. Thousands. One of them was using one of the social media apps to get payment. According to reports, $30,000 in payments were received on one of the guy's social media apps. One of the other people, or one of the other drug dealers and thugs that I call them, because see, they're not calling them thugs and drug dealers. Y'all saw the pictures, right? They had their pictures up with suit and ties on. They were nicely cut. Their hair was nicely cut. You know what? If you didn't know, they were white boys. Now, imagine this going on at an HBCU. What pictures would you show? Would you show their mugshots? Or would you show their college pictures that they took for the yearbook? Mugshots for black people who would have done those things, and college pictures for white boys. By the way, one of the persons arrested was the father of one of the kids, who was literally hiding money and allegedly an attorney. He had a very nice picture too. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up, because see, we're talking about the media. And last segment, I told you, this is why black media is so important. Because we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that had these kids been black kids, oh, by the way, the stories that we saw, they were limited. They talked about the dealing. They talked about the money. But they didn't go into details. How could this happen? Where were the Penn State alum? Where were the Penn State brass? Why wasn't there an interview requested and done by the Penn State president? Oh, by the way, these were two prominent fraternities that was on campus. Where's the story where these fraternities have been immediately suspended from campus? Oh, I didn't tell you that in order to get into these fraternities, you had to cut and package the cocaine. Now, there were only 14 that they showed arrested. But if pledgees were cutting and packaging cocaine, then they are what? I'm listening. Y'all know what the term is? Accessories to the fact. Okay? In other words, they were conspirators. Where are the RICO charges? You see? This was a criminal enterprise that was used. I don't care if they were pledgees and they were young. Don't tell me that you didn't know that you were cutting and packaging cocaine. You did. Because I know there are a lot of black kids that are sitting in prison today, young black kids who were just simply cutting and packaging, trying to make an extra buck. Same thing as these white kids. You don't see those pictures. You don't see those mugshots. Where are all those pledgees? Don't say that they made them do it. You know, there's a thing called right and wrong that you know in your head when something is right or wrong. You know that. So when you decide, oh, I want to pledge with so-and-so fraternity, and they want us to rob banks, you have the right to say, no, bro, you know what? I don't want to be in your fraternity that bad. They want us to rape girls. Oh, no, bro. Sorry. I'm not going to jail for a Greek letter. They want us to package cocaine. No, bro. I don't want to be. No. I don't even do drugs. I don't want. No. Sorry. You have a sense to know when to say, I'm not going to do that. These kids who were the packagers, because we don't know, because the 14 that they showed us, the 13 and the dad, those apparently were the leaders. Where are the packagers? Do you think that not only were they the packagers, but they were the distributors as well? Do you think that some of those kids say, hey man, I got a hookup. You want some nose candy? You want to hit that snow bunny? I know where you can get it from. Where are those guys? I'm just curious, and I'm willing to bet you there were some women involved too. Where are they? Where are their pictures? Where are their mugshots? That's what I want to know. Where are those mugshots? I actually went out online and tried to find the mugshots of those 14 guys. I couldn't find any. Now, I'm sure they're out there because they were arrested, and theoretically, when you get arrested, they take mugshots, but they weren't published. They hadn't published them yet. I go back to my original premise of this piece. What would have happened if those were black kids? You would have seen mugshots all over the place. Not their pictures that they took for their fraternity, or their pictures they took for their freshman in college yearbook. You would have seen orange jumpsuits and mugshots. Again, this goes back to my last segment. This is how the media treats us. And anyone out there who's black, who tends to want to believe that we are treated fairly in this country, you are a damn idiot. You're just not embracing white supremacy. You are shooting white supremacy in your veins. You are infected with white supremacy. Because the last two stories that I've covered today, Dory Miller, and Gary, Indiana, and now the cocaine cowboys of Penn State, is laced with racism, especially from the media. There are other stories that happened last week that is laced with racism. We're gonna talk about Austin Metcalf in the next segment. But the other story that's running around is the the white woman who killed her children. And see how the courts are trying to, she had postpartum depression. She killed 3 children. There was a grandmother last week who left her granddaughter in a car, a hot car, and the granddaughter died. There was a mother in Atlanta who did the same, and her daughter died. One was charged with murder. The other one got sympathy. I bet you know what color they were, don't you? I don't even have to tell you. The grandmother who left her granddaughter in the car was white. And I saw posts from white women who was talking about how much of a tragedy it was, and it's so sad, and they're gonna pray for the family and this, that, and the other. But the black mother, who apparently was stressed, who had 3 children, left an infant in the car and that child died. She was charged with murder. The white grandmother was not. And many of those same white sentiments on the white grandmother's part were not attributed to the black mother's part. Many of them were saying the black mother gets what she deserves. She needs to go to jail. What a damn shame. They aren't like us, and they don't like us. And the sooner we begin to understand that, the better off we'll be for us, by us. That's what we need to start thinking about. And I talk about this literally every show. This is not something that sounds good. This is something that I believe in. I recently found out just the other day that a place here in the DMV that I thought was black owned, and I'm going to call the name Miss Shirley's. And I had been planning to go and eat at Miss Shirley's. I'm not now. You know why? Because Miss Shirley's is not black owned. From what I understand, the recipes was borrowed from a black woman, but it is ran by a white man. Hello? And I'm serious, I had been planning, I just hadn't got around to it. I've been planning to go eat at Miss Shirley's. I won't be eating at Miss Shirley's. And you said, well, David, that's racist. No, it's not racist. I spend a lot of my money at white businesses because I have no choice. But I wrote on that post, I said, I won't be shopping here. I had planned to eat here. I was new to the area. Because white folks only spend money with black businesses when they think black people are cooking. They don't support black businesses any other way. We need our own. And that includes our media, who is going to report stories, who's going to report them unbiased and favorable to black people, and not the media who decides whether or not it's going to tell us that there was 2 college, by the way, not one fraternity, but 2 fraternities on the campus of a giant university, Penn State University, that was dealing cocaine. The Penn State cocaine cartel is what I'm calling it. That story is out of the media now. You're not even seeing it. What's the follow-up stories? Hello? Nobody wants to talk? What about the investigation? Where's the investigation, local white media? I'm just asking for black people who want to see you all treat white people the same as you do us. Because we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that if that would have happened at an HBCU, how it would have been flooding the media, every media outlet every day, led by faux news. I don't even know if that station even, that news station even covered the story. We'll take our top of the hour break. When we come back, we got more media information. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today.
Opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus Radio, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices, emanating live from the DMV. Local, national, and international listeners, get ready. Black Focus Radio is on the air. Like, share, and subscribe on YouTube and your favorite social media app. Now, here's your host, David W. Coleman.
Welcome back to the second hour of Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you'd like to join the show. You can also hit me up on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. While you're out there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And, of course, join my one-man campaign to get rid of the N-word. All right? Black Focus, Blue Chip Down is almost ready. Well, it's really ready already. You can go out to Amazon and order it today, but it won't be shipped to you until after September 1st because that's the debut. Now, if you order it on Amazon, I'm thrilled. I want to say thank you. But if you order it direct from me, here's what I got for you. I'm going to give you not only a copy of Blue Chip Down, the story of a young black man who graduated from Little Rock Central and decided that he was the number one athlete in the country and decided that he wasn't going to take his scholarship. He was going to boycott. He exhibits consciousness, character, and conviction. It's the question that I've been asking a lot of young black males and black females today. Because what they don't understand is that the money that they're earning today in NIL, the groundwork was laid in 1963 by children who had consciousness, character, and conviction. Those children were part of the Children's Crusade. Hello? So, if you order the book, I'm going to autograph it for you. By the way, I am a proud graduate of Little Rock Central. I'm going to autograph it for you. And not only am I going to autograph it for you, I'm going to give you a 2-for-1 deal. And that deal is that not only am I going to give you autograph it you're going to get the hardback, or I should say the paperback, and then you're going to turn around and guess what? You're going to get an audio book. So now, if you don't want to read it, you can listen to it. Or you may have an elderly parent or someone who is seeing impaired. Instead of them reading it, they can hear it. And it was narrated by me. Okay? So, there you go. Speaking of journalism, we've been talking a lot about that. We talked a lot about that this past hour. But I want to continue in that vein for just a moment. Because something happened last weekend that we need to address. Okay? And I don't know if you're familiar with the National Association of Black Journalists. They've been around for quite some time. Normally, black journalists who are in this business join it. I never joined. I'm not sure why I never joined. I've been in the radio business for almost 40 years. And I never joined. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know why I never joined. I just don't. It was really probably an oversight on my part. I'm just going to be honest with you. It was probably an oversight on my part. But I certainly supported them. I knew a lot of black journalists that was in the organization. And you know, part of it, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm just not really a joiner. I'm just not. I have independent thought. And then too, I didn't really want to pay them dues either. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, I'm cheap too. But part of the reason I didn't join a fraternity is because I just wasn't a joiner. I've always been this independent thinker. I'm not even part of NAACP. There's a particular reason why I'm not. I'll tell you that on another show. I'm not a member of the Urban League. I'm just not one of those people who puts his name and says, oh yeah, I believe it. It's not that I don't believe what you're doing. I'm just not a joiner. I'm just an independent. But I appreciate what they do. I appreciate what they stand for. So last week at their annual convention, they gave every year they give what are thumbs down. In other words, this is an award that they give to journalists, whether they're white or black, who does not support or do things that are favorable to the black community. And that means that they are reporting favorably about issues that go on in the black community. And they've been doing this for years. Okay? And last week, and I've got a list, and I may have to, I guess I've went past it, but I've got a list over the last few years of people that they've given this award to. And many of them, some of them are white journalists, some of them have been black journalists. And what I found is that this is not something you probably need to argue about. Okay? Here it is right here. So since 1989 to the present day, only 9 men have ever received a thumbs down. Here are the 9 men. Okay? Pat Buchanan, for writing racially insensitive commentary regarding black and white males. He was the first. Pat Buchanan again, the second time, 2008, for controversial commentary, including columns like A Brief for Whitey and other racially insensitive remarks about black Americans and demographic shifts. Number 3 was Mike Barnacle in 1991 for statements he made during a television appearance claiming he knew more about covering the inner city and black people than any black reporter in Boston. I know you just saw the bottom of your brain, didn't you? Yeah, because your eyes rolled back in your head. Let me read that again. He knew more about covering the black inner city and black people than any black reporter in Boston. Jason Blair, he was the first black guy who got it in 2004 for fabricating stories and tying his troubles to diversity hiring while working at the New York Times. Here's another one, another brother. I won't say another brother, another Cooner. Armstrong Williams, for accepting $240,000 from the Bush administration to promote the No Child Left Behind law without initially disclosing the arrangement. Walter Hessman in 2021, we're back on the whiteboard train now, for opposing tenure for journalist Nicole Hannah-Jones at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. You know Nicole Hannah-Jones, 1619 author. I got that book, by the way. Back on the brother train. DeJuan McCoy, owner and president and CEO of Circle City Broadcasting, parent company for Wish TV, for reported mistreatment of black journalists and poor newsroom culture. So it's a black man. And last but not least is Stephen A. Smith, for recurring pattern of disparaging public commentary directed at prominent black women across politics, sports, and media. Good old Stephen A. Smith. And that's where we are today on this particular subject. We want to talk a little bit about Stephen A. Smith. I don't talk a lot about Stephen A. Smith. I stopped watching his show years ago. I think he's a buffoon. He's a clown. And yes, he's a $100 million man from what we've heard reports of his contract. But here's a classic example of what old people used to say, boy, you done got too big for your britches. Okay? Or don't write that check what your ass can't keep or your ass can't charge. Stephen A. Smith went on a media tour after this award was given because his feelings was hurt. You see, you can't talk about people and dog people and not think that you're going to get backlash, especially from the black community, because black folks will come for you. Okay? Now, unless you have facts, which Stephen A. Smith didn't and don't, then they gonna come for you. And sometimes it is important for you to stay in your lane. Stephen A. Smith is a sports reporter. He's not a political commentary or a political columnist. Now, let me just be honest with you. I did sports, but part of my bona fides is the history research that I did. I'll give you an example. I'm sitting here right now with two books. I'm going to read. I read a little bit out of this book last week. This is Dr. Claude Anderson, a black history reader, 101 questions you never thought to ask. This sitting, and by the way, it's open. I'm going to read a passage from you for you later on in the show. Okay? I'm also sitting here, and I talked about this book last week. I'm also sitting here with, guess what? Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys by Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu. I've got other books. So part of the reason sports was a side thing for me. I first got into the media in talk radio where I covered issues that were related to the city at WHBQ in Memphis. We weren't even doing sports. We were doing news issues, things that affected the entire city of Memphis. So it was easy for me to transition from sports back to news talk because at the end of the day, my background was news talk. Sports was easy because I talked sports, watched sports, but news talk was my baby. Stephen A. Smith did nothing but sports. So then he tried to transition into political talk, and it's been a disaster. And so now he's mad because the NABJ came out and gave him the thumbs down award. Now, here's what I learned, and I tell people all the time, and when I do my teen survival kit, one of the segments or one of the slides that I have in my teen survival kit is how to fix things. And when I would do my rites of passage camps, I would ask the kids, I say, what are the two most powerful words in the English language? And what I would do, I would pull out a sewing kit that would have a needle and a thread. Sometimes you got to know how to fix things. You know, when you split your pants and you're getting ready to go on an important interview or maybe a date, and you move the wrong way and you split your pants and you ain't got time to get another pair, you got to break out that needle and thread and fix your pants. You got to know how to fix it. But the two most powerful words in the English language that I would ask kids, and some of them would get it and some of them didn't, was I'm sorry. I'm sorry. In other words, I said something, I made a mistake. I did something, I made a mistake. Now, you just can't say those words and not follow up on those words. You've got to mean it. Stephen A. Smith apparently didn't understand that. So let me just tell you what he did prior to getting the award. And then I'm going to tell you what he did after receiving the award. Here are his receipts. He had a documented pattern of disparaging black women and black people. He defended Trump by comparing his prosecution to the racist persecution of black historical figures. That's a pregnant pause. Used the MAGA term lawfare to frame cases against Trump as politically motivated. Argued black voters should consider voting Republican. Said racism is not as prevalent as many claim. Oh, by the way, listen to last hour if you think that's true. I wonder what he thinks about the cocaine cartel at Penn State. Hello? Said racism is not as prevalent as we claim. Defended Jerry Jones after segregation photo resurfaced. You know, Jerry Jones is from Arkansas, right? There was a picture of Jerry Jones that resurfaced that he participated in trying to block students from going or integrating North Little Rock High at the time. It was later named Old Main, and now it is called the North Little Rock Charging Wildcats. Just a few miles away, Little Rock Central had already integrated the Little Rock 9, but it was Jerry Jones who stood in front and tried to keep black kids from doing the same at North Little Rock High. The reason I know so much about that particular instance is because I grew up in Little Rock. I graduated from Little Rock Central. I had a lot of friends who went to North Little Rock High. Now here's a guy who don't know his butt from a hole in the ground. You're trying to defend a racist who we know beyond a shadow of a doubt is Jerry Jones. And don't give me this mess, well, he's helped a lot of black folks. Well, let's put the shoe on the other foot. No, black folks has helped Jerry Jones because those are black players. 65 to 70% of them who are in the NFL. Those are black players who have helped Jerry Jones' valuation go up for the Dallas Cowboys. I'm sorry, I digress. Because that's really a stickler with me. Attacked Jasmine Crockett for her criticism of Donald Trump. Called her loud, was basically calling her ghetto. Nobody else was standing up to Donald Trump except Jasmine Crockett. And I admire that sister. Criticized Kamala Harris while giving Trump more grace during the election season. By the way, you do know that Donald Trump called him low IQ. He's criticizing black people and black women, yet and defending the guy who basically subtly called him a dumbass. Engaged in a public dispute with Joy Ann Reid. By the way, Joy Ann Reid is a real journalist. Attacked Cheryl Swoops, calling her take insane while defending Caitlin Clark. You know the racism that has occurred with Caitlin Clark. By the way, there was a WNBA before Caitlin Clark. Feuded with Monica McNutt after she challenged his show's limited WNBA coverage before Caitlin Clark. Defended ICE after killing Renee Good. Minimized systemic racism, calling it overstated. These are your receipts, Stephen A. Smith. Appears frequently with Sean Hannity and echoes right-wing talking points. Now, why would you be on Sean Hannity? We're gonna get back to that here in a moment. Praise Byron Donalds, despite Donald's praise of the Jim Crow era. Y'all remember Byron Donald, right? He is now the Republican candidate for governor who said that black people were better off doing Jim Crow. Y'all know who Jim Crow is, right? If you don't, go do your history. Defended Trump against accusations of racism. Now, at the beginning of this show, I told you about Doris Miller, right? Trump wants to take his name off of the Doris Miller aircraft carrier and put his name on there. Why did he choose a white sailor? Oh my God. Targets black male athletes more harshly than white owners and power figures. Oh, y'all remember what he did to Kyrie Irving, right? You know, I've had some differences with Kyrie Irving myself on some things, like when he started this mess about the world was flat. But when he started talking about what was going on with the Palestinians and what was going on with Jews in the Middle East, I was behind him 100%. Stephen A. led the charge on sports media to assassinate this guy's character. And since then, from what I understand, has apologized. I'm surprised. Repeatedly defended white figures accused of racism. Now, those are the receipts for Stephen A. Miller. But here's the one thing that we have to understand, that when you go through stuff and you do things, the last thing you want to do when you're accused by someone is run to the opposition for support. And that is exactly what Stephen A. Smith did. When the NABJ called him out and gave him that award, he started whining and crying. He went to the Cuomo show and tried to defend himself, talking about, well, I was raised by a black woman. I got 4 black sisters. I got 2 daughters. I don't give a damn what you got. You can still be an ignorant fool, and that is exactly what you are. But what made it worse is that he went to the Sean Hannity show. You just heard me say that he frequently goes on that show. We know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Fox News is the most racist radio and television station we have ever seen in our time. Since I've been alive. They have nothing good about black people on that station. And when good things happen about black people, they don't report it. Hello? So he runs to Sean Hannity. And he hides behind Massa's coattails. He is nothing more than Calvin in Django. Is that you defend Massa whenever you can, and then when the black folks come for you, you run and hide behind Massa. And that's what you did, Stephen A. Smith. You ran and hid behind Massa Sean Hannity. Oh, Sean, black folks are treating me bad. Oh, Django is killing Massa. Django is shooting at us. Oh, Massa, I'm going to save you. I'm going to burn down in the house that you built that Master, you sick? No, Master, you not sick. We sick. This was Stephen A. Smith. And he thought that that would give him some credibility. And he thought that that would make people feel sorry for him. No, brother. No. In fact, it made you look worse. Because if you were really concerned about what the NABJ said about this award and what people have been saying about you, because what you have right now, you're like Ulysses when you were going by the island of the sirens. You put wax in your ears so you couldn't hear. You've got wax in your ears. Because black people have been telling you this for years, that what you are doing is detrimental to the black community. But you didn't care because it was filling your pockets. You're just like Coon Tatum. You're just like Chef Coon Creole. Is as long as white people were dapping you up and patting you on the back and sticking, don't let me, and Coon Candace. There are a lot of them. But long as white people were dapping you up and throwing trinkets in your pockets, you okay with dogging the black community. And now that the black community has turned against you, you got a problem. You're saying you're being treated unfairly. You try to give your bona fides of what you've done to help black people. And there are many young black journalists out there who said, well, Stephen A. Smith did this. Look, that's fine. But what that says to me is that you were not helping them because they were black. You were helping them so you could get pats on the back. See, when you're really trying to help someone, it's not about you. You don't really care about the pats on the back. You care about that people are getting opportunities. So, Stephen A., Coon A. Smith, you're getting everything you deserve. And you can take your money and do whatever you want with it. But at the end of the day, you still a coon ass, you know what. You still a Sambo. And I'm glad. And I hope they keep punching you because eventually what ESPN is going to say is, we can't have this. This is going to ultimately hurt our bottom line. And they're going to do to you just like they've done to other black media. They're going to kick you to the curb. And you need to be on the curb. We'll take a break. We're back in a moment. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joinetradio.com.
He's 6'5", 225 pounds, runs a 4.240, and he's the #1 high school football recruit in America.
Amon-Ra Fuqua, National Signing Day is here. Where are you going?
I'm not signing.
Every major college wanted him, but Amon-Ra Fuqua wanted something bigger.
You make billions from our talent. It's time the athletes who built this game get a fair share and a voice. And hear me clearly, if we can't vote in your state, we won't play in your state. Break it, whatever it takes.
Amon, help me.
LaMarcus.
His boycott threatens $1 billion empire, and powerful people are determined to stop him. His best friend is dead. His twin sister has been kidnapped, and the people behind it may be closer to power than anyone imagined. From the football field to the streets of Little Rock to the halls of power, one young man is about to discover what happens when you challenge the system.
For LaMarcus, the boycott continues.
Blue Chip Down, a gripping political sports thriller by Dante Cinque. One signature could have made him rich. One decision could change America. Blue Chip Down, available now on Amazon.
What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens. Order The Pain of Vengeance today, now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today.
All right, welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you'd like to join the show. I got a few other things to talk about. We definitely want to get to this Hakeem Jeffries story and the Democratic Party. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in Texas as it relates to Carmelo Anthony. Of course, his defense team was granted a new trial, or I should say, had the initial judge removed from the case, and a new judge was appointed. Apparently, late last Friday, that new judge decided that he would not grant a new trial. There is another appeal in the process, but there has been a lot of information that has come out. And I asked the question because we knew, based on what we had heard about Austin Metcalf, that this guy and his twin brother were bullies. And none of that information, for whatever reason, was offered as evidence to defend Carmelo Anthony's move of what he did by stabbing Austin Metcalf. Now, let me be clear. I'm not advocating anyone to be stabbed or killed because of what they do, but we have to understand that, and I should say, and let me say this to my white brothers and sisters. If you put your hands on black people, it's not like it was back in the 50s. Black people are going to defend themselves. And we see that over and over again on social media. Leave black people alone. Okay? But apparently, Austin Metcalf didn't care. And there was a gentleman's agreement from the defense as well as the prosecution to not allow evidence of Austin Metcalf's past to be brought into the trial. And I found it peculiar that all of these, the defense attorney, the prosecuting attorney, the judge, all of them were buds. They were friends. And I asked a legal friend of mine who, because I wanted some legal information, how is it possible that the prosecuting attorney and the judge were buds and they used to go out for drinks and stuff like that? How is it that the judge wasn't recused from the case? And she made the legal argument that, well, a lot of the legal professionals know each other and they go out. But from what we knew, or that was reported, that they just didn't go out for lunch. They were personal friends. So at that point, when I first found that out, I knew the case was a problem. But I'm not an attorney. It played out. Carmelo Anthony was found guilty. But no one ever mentioned Austin Metcalf. In fact, he was allowed, the media portrayed him as this guy who was just trying to defend himself. When in fact, late last week, now that we got the pre-trial investigation reports, we know that Austin Metcalf was a racist. And how do we know he was a racist? Remember the rant that his dad went on after the conviction, after the verdict? Remember how racist he was? That old saying, a nut don't fall far from the tree. And his dad was a nut. And it was clear beyond a shadow of a doubt that his dad was a racist. Now, if you are a racist, there's a very distinct likelihood that the children that you raise are going to be racist. And sure enough, that information was reported, that Austin Metcalf was a racist. He painted racial slurs He talked about killing N-words. He was a bully all the way back through elementary school. He and his brother, where they beat up girls and women. And then the report, the shocking report, was the fact that at one time he actually choked his own mother. This boy had anger problems and people let him float through. We talked about his size as opposed to Carmelo Anthony. He was this big old linebacker picking on this little bitty guy who barely weighed 160 pounds. We know now that not only was Austin Metcalf a racist, so is his twin brother. And none of this stuff came out in the trial. I don't know why. As of late last week, the new judge said that he would not grant a new trial. We'll see what happens as we continue to move forward. But it is important for us to understand that our justice system treats us unfairly. White people always like to say, well, you know, there are more black people arrested for this, convicted, and this. And you know the irony behind that is that there are more black people who are falsely arrested and exonerated for crimes that they never committed than any other race of people. Hello? Now we know, according to reports, that Carmelo Anthony did stab Austin Metcalf, and death was the result of that stabbing. What we didn't know up until this past week is that Austin Metcalf precipitated the incident. You see, what we got to understand as black people, that stand your ground doesn't mean it's not designed for black people, because Carmelo Anthony was standing his ground. Trayvon Martin was standing his ground. Ended up dying, but George Zimmerman went free. I just thought I'd throw that, we needed to just throw that little tidbit in on the show today. Because there are black people running around talking about everything is equal. And every day we see that it isn't. It's kind of like walking around with body odor. And when you walk into a group of friends and they part and say, oh man, you funky, you smell. And you keep walking like, oh man, I don't smell nothing. That's what a lot of black folks are doing. That's what Stephen A. Smith is doing. By the way, it's amazing how Stephen A. Smith has morphed into Jason Whitlock. Okay. One other thing I want to cover real fast in this segment before we get to what we must do. I want to talk about the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is changing before our eyes. Okay? The Democratic Party is changing before our eyes, and there are a lot of people who are upset about it. And I'm not talking about Republicans. I'm talking about Democrats. You know, we've talked a lot on this show over the last few weeks about prominent Democrats, corporate Democrats, who are upset about the Democratic Socialist Party. Okay? A lot of them are upset about Abdul Sayed winning the nomination in the Democratic Party in Michigan, calling him a Democratic Socialist. Okay? And it's funny how they try to throw that term. In fact, I saw a piece last week where there was a Democratic strategist. And, you know, those people are paid to get Democrats elected. He was on C-SPAN. And the people on there read him the Riot Act. They asked, how could you say some of the things that you're saying about Abdul Sayed and you are a Democrat? And there was one man who called and said, hey, look, I voted for the opponent but I'm a Democrat. And now that Syed has won, I'm gonna support Syed because he's a Democrat. And all the lies that you're spilling is simply not true. He never said any of those things. Okay? Same thing occurred in Florida. Angie Nixon calling her a democratic socialist. Well, look, let me ask you something. Who doesn't want better health care? Who wants insurance for everybody? Raise your hand. If you're a Democrat or a Republican, you don't want these insurance companies continue to make billions off of your money. And when you need a particular treatment, they deny the claim. Who doesn't want that? Okay? Who doesn't want better public schools? I'm just asking, who doesn't want those things? Tell me. Who doesn't want hospitals in their communities? Who wants to keep pedophiles in jail and prosecuted? Can y'all tell me that? Because see, what I know is that this is what many of those people that they're calling democratic socialists are standing for. But you got Republicans, you've got Democratic leaders who are attacking these people, telling them that look, here's the other thing that you need to understand. That's so profound. That when certain people start telling you what you shouldn't do, then maybe you should do it. And when certain people start telling you that you shouldn't vote for a certain person because of things that you know you want, then maybe you should vote for that person. Okay? They want to stop outsourcing your jobs. They want to stop your rent being raised every other month. This is what these people like. And look, here's the thing. 3 people to never trust. Religious leaders who tell you how to vote. Politicians who tell you how to pray. And draft dodgers who tell you how to be patriotic. And I would add one other. Politicians who take your money from corporate donors and don't support you in your home cities and states. Which brings me to Hakeem Jeffries. Hakeem Jeffries right now is the leader of the Democratic Party in the House. If the House flips, Hakeem Jeffries would be the Speaker of the House. Now, you would think, oh, well, that's great. I support my boy Hakeem. His name is Hakeem. But see, I can't support Hakeem Jeffries. Do I want the Democrats to take the House? No doubt about it. We've got to do everything we can to get rid of this fool called Donald Trump. But on the other hand, we need to get rid of the Democratic leadership as well. Number one, there are more 70-plus-year-old people in the House and the Senate, in both Democrats and Republicans, than there are others in the House and the Senate. Their ideas are old. They need to go. Look, I'm 65, but I know that there are things that I did then, that I believed in then, that I don't believe in now. But see, the reason many of these people are still in the House, and this is why we need term limits in the House and the Senate, is because these people have been living off the fat of the American people and lobbyists. Hakeem Jeffries takes $300,000 from AIPAC and the Israeli lobby. When he was asked last week in an interview about would he support universal health care, he said no. Why wouldn't you support universal health care? The majority of your constituents are black, and the majority of those black constituents don't have health care. And even if they're not black, the majority of your constituents are poor, black and white. And they're literally going into bankruptcy when they have a critical ailment. And you won't support that? Hakeem Jeffries, you need to go, bro. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And any other Democratic leader who doesn't support universal health care, it doesn't make any sense to me that we send billions of dollars to Israel where they've got universal health care, where their people can go to school free of charge, and we are the only industrialized nation in the world, and we claim to be the greatest, that their people don't have universal health care. It makes no sense whatsoever. And no Republican or Democrat, or I should say no Republican or demagogue, can tell me counter that it's okay. Because you're being paid by the pharmaceuticals, you're being paid by the hospital lobby, you're being paid by the American Medical Association, you're being paid by APAC to vote against your own people. Yet it is our tax dollars who are funding all of that. It's time for y'all to go. Now, I want the Democrats to win this fall because the primary is to get rid of this fool in the White House. The secondary is to get rid of anyone who is 70 plus years old who don't want to understand that this country has changed and the needs of the people outweigh the needs of the few. We'll take our last break. It's called What We Must Do. We're called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
He's 6'5", 225 pounds, runs a 4.240, and he's the #1 high school football recruit in America.
Amon-Ra Fuqua, National Signing Day is here. Where are you going?
I'm not signing.
Every major college wanted him, but Amon-Ra Fuqua wanted something bigger.
You make billions from our talent. It's time the athletes who built this game get a fair share and a voice. And hear me clearly, if we can't vote in your state, we won't play in your state. Break it, whatever it takes.
Amon, help me.
LaMarcus.
His boycott threatens $1 billion empire, and powerful people are determined to stop him. His best friend is dead. His twin sister has been kidnapped, and the people behind it may be closer to power than anyone imagined. From the football field to the streets of Little Rock to the halls of power, one young man is about to discover what happens when you challenge the system.
For LaMarcus, the boycott continues.
Blue Chip Down, a gripping political sports thriller by Dante Cinque. One signature could have made him rich. One decision could change America. Blue Chip Down, available now on Amazon.
What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Cinque today.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. Oh, by the way, last segment I misspoke. We know Hakeem Jefferson's taken quite a bit of money from APAC, but he's also taken $300,000 from the healthcare PACs. And then he came out against Medicare for all. Okay, it's just mind-boggling to me. It is just mind-boggling to me. It is. Okay, I want to read something to you. Okay. This is from a Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. This is by Dr. Claude Anderson. Okay. It's the number 14 question in that 101 questions. Why blacks need communities instead of neighborhoods. Physical communities and a strong sense of community are essential for surviving and prospering in a competitive, group-based society. Today, across America, blacks have neighborhoods instead of communities. A community is where a group lives, works, learns, competes, and thrives. It is where they store their valuables, history, culture, businesses, jobs, and functional schools. Black neighborhoods are like buckets with holes in them. They are porous and do not hold a thing of value. A neighborhood is dysfunctional, crime-ridden, impoverished, and transitory in nature. Just like European whites surrendered their ethnicity, came together and built a national white community, Black Americans could come together for group strength as a national Black community and cease pursuing social integration. However, to convert neighborhoods into communities and bring back Blacks who no longer live in Black neighborhoods, the targeted areas must have certain things. Hello? That's deep. It goes further. Okay? It goes further. I just wanted to throw that out there and what we must do. Here's a couple of other things that I want to tell you. There are 10 things every Black person in America must understand. White supremacists have officially waged a holy war against you. Unbeknownst to Coon Tatum and Coon A. Smith and Coon Candace and Coon Chef Creole. There are no official agencies willing to protect your constitutional rights against white supremacists. I just gave you an example of that. Carmelo Anthony is a stark example of that. The young Black woman who left a child in her car is a stark example of that, as opposed to the white grandmother who left a child in the car. The Black woman is being charged with murder. The white woman is getting sympathy. The other white woman who killed three of her children, she's getting sympathy. And many believe that she's not going to be convicted. Being sensitive or emotional about this reality will not help you. You must think strategically at this point. You have a constitutional and God-given right to protect yourselves by any means from white supremacists to terrorists. Hello? Do not let the media or politicians fool you with deflective terms like left, right, fascism, etc. The issue is simply white supremacy. You are under no obligation to allow white supremacists terrorize to murder you. Defend yourselves at all cost. Don't let any non-Black groups pacify you with marches, church visits, prayers, and sympathy. If they are not willing to punish white supremacist terrorists for harming you, they're wasting your time. I think Black people have began to realize that. That's why you're not seeing Black people out in these marches anymore. There is no moral high road needed to defend yourselves from terrorism. Cheating is allowed when it comes to your survival. I agree. Ask someone who's been to war and had to do hand-to-hand combat. They grab, they hit, they stab, they spit, they kick, they throw dirt in your face, they do anything that they need. Cheating is okay when you're talking about survival. You're in a war, not a protest. Don't show up to the battlefield with just an iPhone. Those are 10 things every Black person in America needs to understand. And it's so profound. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They tell you, white people will tell you to remember 9/11. They'll tell you to remember the Holocaust. They'll tell you to remember the Alamo. They'll tell you to remember the American Revolution. Look, I just talked about Pearl Harbor. They'll tell you to remember Pearl Harbor. Okay? These are white people. But then when it comes to slavery, they say, come on, you still stuck on that? It's time for you to move on. That was years ago and no one cares. Yeah. That's what you call white supremacy, folks. That is what you call pure, unadulterated white supremacy. It's amazing to me that we allow this to continue to happen. And the reason it does is because we don't know our own history. In fact, some of us are even afraid to tell our own history, to talk about our own history. For whatever reasons, we won't even talk about it. By the way, August 21st, 1931 is when Nat Turner decided that he had had enough and launched his slave rebellion. He was betrayed by Coon A. Smith and Coon Tatum and Coon Candace. They would have killed a lot of more slave owners had it not been the betrayal of those coons. I'm just saying. We got to get to a point now where we got to start defending our own. And anyone, look, I'm all for it. Look, I tell you all the time that one of my favorite heroes in history was John Brown. And it was a long time, I don't think until it was about the 6th or 7th grade that I realized that John Brown was a white man. John Brown, Harper's Ferry. I live in this area now, and one of my goals is to go to Harper's Ferry. This area is replete with historical connotations. I had the pleasure of going to the Benjamin Banneker Park one day. Accidentally drove by it. It said Benjamin Banneker Park, and I was like, huh? Turned around, drove back, got out the truck, just kind of walked through the park and absorbed some of the ancestral greatness that Benjamin Banneker had to offer. By the way, Washington, D.C. is in part because of Benjamin Banneker. Y'all didn't know that, right? But John Brown was my hero. He was one of the first book reports that I ever wrote. It was like 2nd grade. Didn't know he was a white man. Didn't know it. So there are white people that, if you are willing to stand for what's right, it's not a black or white issue. It's about standing for what's right. And it seems as of late, those white people are few and far between. We're beginning, and maybe they're just maybe they're in fear of voicing their concerns for because they're in fear of being attacked by white racists. But I promise you, my white brothers and sisters, that if you start standing for what's right, and what's right is equality, what's right is treating everybody based on the Constitution, then black people will beat a path to your door. But the question is, where are those who are willing to stand for what's right? I don't know that there is. And as I've gotten older, I would thought by now that things would have been different from the way it was when I grew up in the late 60s and 70s. It's worse. You say, well, how can you say it's worse, David? No, they're not white and black water fountains. But whereas the attitudes of racism and bigotry were suddenly pushed under, now they are back. They're no longer covert, they are overt. And there are people who are proud of the fact that they are racist. Even the President of the United States and his cabinet, proud of the fact that they are racist and bigots. And don't mind showing it not just to American citizens, they don't mind showing it to the world. And today, this is the America we live in. Doris Miller fought for this America in hopes that his kids would grow up and be able to be judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. Hundreds of black people died for that right. Children marched. King, Malcolm, Medgar, all of them died for not wanting something extra, but just wanted to be treated equal. And when you listen to black people don't want anything extra. Yeah, we want our reparations because we deserve that. But we don't want anything extra. We just want to know that when we go and apply for a job, when we go and apply for a bank loan, when we apply for a mortgage, a business loan, when we go to the hospital, we're going to be treated as an individual and not used as a guinea pig. And on that note, we need to start paying attention. We need to build our own. No one can save us from us but us. We need to get back to what Dr. Anderson talked about. We need to rebuild our communities and get out of these neighborhoods. Because who will tell our story? As I close, here's a quote from one of my favorites. A race of people is like an individual man unless it uses its own talent, takes pride in its own history, expresses its own culture, affirms its own selfhood. It can never fulfill itself. That is the great Malcolm X. Thanks for listening to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. Habari Gani.
You've been listening to Black Focus Radio, where we discuss our issues, develop our solutions while using our voices. Special thanks to joynetradio.com, where they keep you inspired and informed. Want to advertise, have comments, or guest ideas? Send your requests to blackfocusradio@gmail.com. We'll see you next time on Black Focus Radio.